I'm actually kind of excited. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And welcome to the very first episode of my new series, Early Access. This is where we will be doing match previews. We're going to look at the opposition teams, any particular dangerous faces that we might need to worry about, and of course talk about the Chelsea lineup and see who we think might be involved in the upcoming match. So the first match of the Club World Cup is on June the 16th, which also happens to be my 36th birthday. Hopefully Chelsea gift me with a win, because I definitely was not gifted with anything particularly interesting during the small transfer window that has just been and gone. So without further ado, let's get into it, and let's start with the Chelsea squad. We're going to talk a little bit about who's been included in the entire squad for the competition and the notable omissions. The squad is comprised of most of the players that we've had with us through the entire season, but there are some notable inclusions in the form of a few new signings and returning loanees. As far as the new signings go, superstar striker Liam Delap has made the cut alongside 20-year-old Sporting Lisbon midfielder Dario Asugo and new signing from Strasbourg, 19-year-old defender Mamadou Sarr. As for loanees returning to the squad, the two particular notable ones are Andre Santos, superstar, excellent, all-round, amazing midfielder who's just had an unbelievable season at Strasbourg, and I'm really excited about this one. He looks awesome, and I've said a couple of times in a few of my other videos, I do expect him to really challenge the likes of Enzo Fernandez and Romeo Lavia for that starting spot. Also, we may expect to see some of young prodigy Belgian goalkeeper Mike Penders, who has actually been included in the squad. That was quite a surprise for me, bearing in mind some of the omissions, and I wasn't really of the opinion that we're going to keep Mike Penders around for the season, but you never know, this might be an exciting one. The goalkeeping situation is a mess at Chelsea, so if Mike Penders gets some minutes and comes in, maybe we end up keeping him around. So with obviously Liam Delap and Andre Santos leading the line in terms of exciting inclusions for the Club World Cup, let's move on to some of the omissions. This list is longer than I thought it would be, and a little bit more surprising than I thought it would be too. So there are some obvious ones, right? The likes of Raheem Sterling, Ben Chilwell. These guys have gone out on loan, and they haven't gone out in order to get minutes and reintegrate into the team. So it is no massive surprise to see these kind of guys not really making the cut. Also not particularly surprising omission is João Felix, who we sent out on loan to AC Milan in January, and he did not exactly cover himself in glory during that loan spell. So he's also been omitted, and you'd have to think essentially anyone in this list is probably going to be sold, right? So it is an interesting insight in itself, just to say, okay, these guys are going to probably be sold. Slightly more surprising omissions include the likes of Jordi Petrovic. We've talked about it quite a lot recently. It just looks like he's going to be sold. Jordi Petrovic is a stinger for me, because obviously we didn't manage to get the Mike Maignan deal over the line. So from the perspective of most Chelsea fans, you would assume that, okay, let's get our potentially best goalkeeper to come in between the sticks for this competition, see what he can do and see if he can work his way into the squad. But there is evidently something about Jordi Petrovic that either the manager doesn't like, or it is simply just a fact of we'll make a lot of money on him. It feels a little bit like the Trev Chalobah situation, right? Not exactly the same, but ultimately I do think that if there was absolutely anything going to happen other than him getting sold, he'd have been included in this squad. And for instance, to see the likes of Philip Jorgensen and Mike Penders involved in the squad over someone like Jordi Petrovic, it doesn't look good for him, does it? Other slightly surprising omissions include the likes of Renato Veiga, who we bought for pretty cheap. It was like 9 mil. We got him from Basel. He ended up leaving in January because he wanted to play the centre-back role, because that's where he plays for Portugal. And he went to Juventus and had a reasonably successful loan there. He was apparently under the impression that he was going to come back into the squad and be part of the Club World Cup, but evidently not, because he's been excluded. So Renato Veiga probably finds himself on that sell list as well. Not too bothered about this one, I guess, because I never really saw him, coming in for a spot in the first team. And ultimately, the fact that he agitated for a move in January after only being with us for 6 months, obviously the kid's ambitious, don't get me wrong. He looks like he could be a really good player. But the Maresca and, the hierarchy obviously don't see him as being super essential. And if we could probably get 20 to 30 mil for him, we double our money at least. Okay, fair enough. Slightly disappointing one is prolific youngster Kendry Paez, right? So Kendry Paez we bought at the same time we got Esteval Willian. Esteval Willian is technically an omission, but not really, because we always knew he was going to stay with, I think it's Palmeiras, isn't it, in Brazil. He's going to play in the competition, actually, with, and then after the Club World Cup, then he's going to come into the Chelsea squad. Kendry Paez is a bit of a weird one, because we've had Kendry Paez for quite a long time now. He finished up his season in Brazil, and then ended up moving to London to, start getting used to the culture and, train with the team and be around and stuff. So we're all obviously still really excited about Estevão Willian, but Kendry Páez, I don't know, it went a little bit quiet. At the time that we bought them, they both seemed to be purported to be these unbelievable young talents. And it's come out that supposedly Kendry Páez was given some sort of confirmation a long time ago that, yeah, we're going to use you in the Club World Cup squad. The news recently is that he's going to go on loan to Strasbourg. That is not particularly unsurprising, right? It seems like there's not necessarily a space for him, obviously, in the team at the moment. We've now got a lot of midfielders. He's not really like a right winger or anything. He seems to be more an attacking 8/number 10 kind of guy, and we are kind of stacked in those areas. But it is a weird one that we were like, yeah, you're going to play in the Club World Cup, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, actually you're not. We're just going to send you to Strasbourg. So you might be a little bit disappointed by that, but if he goes and has an Andre Santos kind of season, then that's going to work out for the best, isn't it? Less surprising omissions are also the likes of Mathis Amugu, who also is purported to be on his way to Strasbourg on loan. He was in and around the first team for the back half of the season. I think he made like 1 or 2 appearances. He was essentially bought to replace Andre Santos at Strasbourg, and obviously with us bringing Santos back into the squad and he's looking like he's going to play a real part in the team, it just kind of makes sense. So not, nothing crazy about that one. So we are looking at a few fresh faces, the likes of obviously Liam Delap and Andre Santos, really exciting. Some of the omissions a little bit surprising, but ultimately it's a weird one, this, isn't it? Because this is a competition that we actually want to win. So it's not just one of those, let's try a load of people out, like, give some youngsters some minutes and this and that and the other. There's real money on the line. And I imagine this competition will become more prestigious over time because it's a world competition rather than a European one. And with football's growing fan base internationally, this kind of competition is going to be tuned into, especially the likes of, like America, because as we are facing our LAFC in our first game, that's absolutely unbelievable exposure for them. So yeah, although some of the teams we're going to play against might not exactly be in the upper echelons of footballing quality, you'd be surprised. These kinds of occasions are massive for, I don't like to use the word, but smaller teams. And they can, really, really galvanise a group of players to go and do the impossible. So, yeah, we're not going to just throw Kendry Páez and Reggie Walsh and, all of our youngsters, kind of like we did at the start of the Conference League, right? Because it's a shorter competition. It's probably going to be reasonably intense. And ostensibly, Chelsea want a win. So we're probably going to go forward with reasonably strong lineups, I would have thought. So the omissions and the inclusions are not particularly surprising based on that. So let's move on to the opposition. LAFC, Los Angeles' other team, because there's LA Galaxy and there's Los Angeles FC. Kind of like how there's New York FC and the New York Red Bulls. Relative unknown. Do you know what I mean? I think they're a reasonably new team. I don't know if they've been in the league for a long time. And if they have, we haven't heard about them. Like everyone knows the likes of the New York Red Bulls and LA Galaxy and Inter Miami, even though they're quite a new team. LAFC is not one you hear about as much, but there are some interesting, surprising faces that Premier League fans will absolutely remember. So the team in general is relative unknowns from an English football fan's perspective, right? I've had a look through the squad list and there are only a few players that I remember well, and a couple of players I do remember being in and around the footballing sphere, but never really broke out, right? So I don't know if anyone remembers, there was a player, like a right back called Marlon, who was, all the rage like one summer for Barcelona and then kind of faded into obscurity. He has found his way into this team. Apart from that, the two really notable ones are the spines of the team, right? It is the goalkeeper and the striker. The goalkeeper in Hugo Lloris, who was obviously Tottenham's goalkeeper for a really long time. He was their goalkeeper in that unbelievable run they went on when they were challenging for leagues and they were actually, got into a Champions League final. Hugo Lloris was an excellent goalkeeper. He did start to fall off as far as the Premier League goes, so I'm not particularly concerned that he's going to be the game changer there. Obviously, he's been in America for a little while. But yeah, Hugo Lloris is back on the pitch against Chelsea, so that's interesting, right? And the other player is one that us Chelsea fans are all particularly familiar with. He was a divisive player, and for me, I've had literal arguments with people on YouTube about whether he was consistent or not, but it is Olivier Giroud. Olivier Giroud was, on his day, one of the best players you'll ever see in your life. He would score scorpion kicks and do all these little flicks and tricks, and he'd come out of the waterworks and literally win your team a game out of absolute nowhere with like a pounding header or something like that. Giroud was, on his day, one of my favourite players to watch. But the problem for me with Giroud is that was like 20% of the time. 80% of the time, he kind of floated around and didn't really do much, didn't add to the team so much. Like towards the end of his Chelsea career, he'd really started to raise his stock, and he was really notable for allowing players like Eden Hazard to really focus more on the attack, and his link-up play was unbelievable, and he did unlock players around him. It wasn't one of those where it was like, oh my God, I want to see Giroud on the pitch every single time. Sometimes it was a groan. The only time I was happy to see Giroud on the pitch is if he'd been chosen after having an amazing game previously. But like I say, for me, it was consistency. Now, this is a big one that I've kind of got into it with people on various social media platforms. So if you guys have an opinion on the question, was Giroud a consistent player? Please, let's talk about it in the comments. I'd love to know what you think. So obviously 2 memorable and familiar faces in the LAFC first team, but not so much to be completely worried about. What I will say is I wouldn't be surprised if we lost this game 1-0 and Giroud scores a goal from the halfway line or a scorpion kick or does a backflip, somersault, unbelievable karate move to score a goal or something. Do you know what I mean? Because that would just be our luck, wouldn't it? The one day that we see Giroud in a really long time, he has one of his Giroud days. Do you know what I mean? And just does something absolutely unbelievable. But other than that, I don't think we need to be too worried. And that in itself nicely leads me on to the next part of the video, which is going to be the Chelsea lineup. So I've created a lovely little graphic here that you can have a look at as we will be popping the faces in those positions. You can see already I've gone with a 4-2-3-1, which is not particularly surprising because that is the formation that we've played throughout the whole of basically the last 2 seasons. So although maybe LAFC don't feel like the scariest of opposition, I do still think we'll go with a relatively strong lineup. And because of that, against all of my better judgment and will, and it breaks my heart to say it, but I am going to suggest that we start with Robert Sanchez as the goalkeeper. Robert Sanchez is not the guy that most Chelsea fans want to see in the sticks ever, but if you look back, if you look at our goalkeeping situation, throwing Mike Penders in straight away in games that we want to win, do you know what I mean? It just feels a bit dangerous, doesn't it? So I would have thought, especially as we're probably going to bring some other new faces that I'll get into, having a solid goalkeeper. Can I call him a solid goalkeeper? I don't know. But having a goalkeeper we are comfortable with in between the sticks feels like the right thing to do. Moving on to the right back spot, and I call it the right back spot. It's more of a right centre back / right back / midfield spot, and it is obviously no one other than our captain, Reece James. Reece James literally managed to play the entirety of the last season, right? So maybe we've got him back now. I know that he had surgery. After his last long layoff was because he had surgery, which he'd been putting off for a while. But it seems to have done the business this time. Do you know what I mean? Reece James, they're still being careful with him. He's not been being played every game. So although I expect to see Reece James in this game, it is very possible that we win this game and he doesn't carry on into the next one. I personally want to see him there, and I think we will see him there because Reece James is just amazing at making things happen from anywhere he is on the pitch. And as far as left back goes, it's just Marc Cucurella, isn't it? It's just Marc Cucurella. Not only do we not really have any other options, Marc Cucurella is one of the best left backs in the world at this point. And like I say, we actually want to win these games. Do you know what I mean? It's not just about getting people out there to give them minutes, because if it was, we'd probably have seen some other faces included in the squad. So based on the fact that I think we actually want to win these games and we're going to go in with a reasonably full-strength team, Marc Cucurella nails the spot down. Anyone who's a Chelsea fan, a Spain fan, or a football fan in general wouldn't look at anyone else in our squad and be like, oh, maybe we give this other guy a shot. Like, it's no. If we want to win games, Marc Cucurella starts at left-back. So the 2 centre-back spots. So we'll get the easy one out of the way. It's probably going to be Levi Colwill, isn't it? It's probably going to be Levi Colwill. The likes of Axel Disasi have been omitted from the squad. There are light rumblings at the moment, maybe about Badiashile being sold as well. It is Levi Colwill for that left-sided spot. Now, for the right-sided spot, I'm going to go a little bit cavalier. I am going to throw in Mamadou Sarr, our new 19-year-old centre-back. And the reason for that is I think that despite us, like me saying obviously a lot, I do think we want to win these games. You would think the obvious thing to do would be to put Chalobah or Tosin in. But Mamadou Sarr has had a great season out in France. He's been a really, really strong player. And also, I think we're probably still going to be looking to sell Trevor Chalobah, right? There were some rumblings about that maybe not being the case, but I do think that Chalobah will continue to play the same sort of role he has been, where he's not been starting every game, but if we need him, we'll throw him in. But I do think this game would be an excellent chance, especially with a really strong backline around him, right? With the likes of Cucurella, Colwill and Reece James, maybe we can afford to take that little tiny risk with someone like Mamadou Sarr going into the squad. Yes, he's young, but he's had such a great season and he was a mainstay in that Strasbourg team last year. Okay, so now we move into the midfield, and I'm going to do something interesting with this one. We'll start with who I think is odds on. It's Moises Caicedo. If you want to win games, Moises Caicedo starts in your midfield, and it is basically just as simple as that, isn't it? Moises Caicedo has been in the conversation with the likes of Ryan Gravenberch of Liverpool for the season's best midfielder. Ultimately, we all know Caicedo is the man. He has really grown into this team. He is almost always the first name on the team sheet. He's dogged, he's energetic, he's aggressive, and he stays fit as well, which is obviously an amazing thing. So again, we're going to look at a few new faces in this team, and that can only be done if we've got some of those really constant, solid mainstays. Moises Caicedo gets in this team for me in that defensive midfield spot that we all love him in. So, not particularly cavalier because I don't feel like it's a risk, but for the other midfield spot, I am going to go with Andre Santos. I think this competition is the perfect time for Andre Santos to come in and show us what he's learned on loan. Like I say, for me, I just feel like he's really going to challenge the likes of Enzo Fernandez and Lavia for that spot. He is just such an excellent midfielder. He's, again, kind of like Caicedo. He's, dogged, energetic and aggressive, but definitely in a more attacking sense. He looks to link stuff together. He's got leadership experience. He just looks to be a phenomenal player. And I think this is a safe bet to put him in, right? It's, Enzo Fernandez is a safe bet. Lavia is a safe bet if he's fit, but obviously Lavia's fitness has been in and out, so it seems like a no-brainer. Get Andre Santos in this team and let's start integrating him into the squad, because I think he's going to play a lot next year, and this is a perfect opportunity against not massive opposition, but like I say, the event itself is quite big. Andre Santos 100% is going to be in that spot for me. I could see a world that we put Enzo Fernandez on to begin with and bring the likes of Andre Santos on as a sub, but I just think let's just go for it, man. Let's just absolutely go for it. Andre Santos gets the spot for me. And that takes us to our 3 attacking midfielders. This one kind of writes itself, and that is largely because we were a bit disappointed in the transfer window, right? We wanted to see some new faces come in, and we didn't. And there's some stuff that's gone on internationally recently, that is tarring my opinion. I don't know. I wouldn't say tarring my opinion, but has led me to kind of make these choices as well. It's kind of boring. It's not very interesting. But in the centre of the park, we're going Cole Palmer, right? It wasn't going to be anyone else. Cole Palmer, he kind of, especially at this point, we need him because in his best moment, he's unbelievable. And we also need him because we've got to get him more game time before the next season. He might be knackered, he might be exhausted because he has played a lot this season, but he still hasn't gotten over whatever's going on inside his head. So playing him in a game like this, at a big event like this, again, feels like a no-brainer. There's also not really many other options, is there, to be honest? Like, Christopher Nkunku is out the door, isn't he? João Felix hasn't even been named in the squad. The last season's over kind of thing, and he can put that behind him. This is like an intense preseason for him. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously he's going to have a preseason, but we're going to have this competition as well. And I think Cole Palmer, if he can find a bit of that magic again, he was starting to pull it out of the bag towards the end of last season as well with the assists. Do you know what I mean? He was really coming in and starting to make things happen. Looked a little bit leggy for England, unfortunately. He didn't exactly, he didn't look unbelievable in the England games. And, obviously that's going to be difficult though. New manager, different players kind of thing. He's not really integrated into that team yet. But with a few new faces in our squad and the opportunity to win a competition and a tournament and show himself on the world stage, which for a young player like Cole Palmer with, the kind of energy he's got, I think is a thing that bears talking about. So yeah, centre attack, Cole Palmer, just praying that he finds himself again. And I think this is a great opportunity for him to do that. Okay, so right wing, it's Pedro Neto. Pedro Neto has kind of started locking that position down really, without the likes of Esteval Willian coming in yet to really push him. I don't really think that there's an obvious other option for someone to come in. Now, you'd say Madueke, but we'll get onto that in a minute. Pedro Neto has just come from winning the Nations League with Portugal. He's in good form. He'll be feeling good. He's one of those players that is really starting to look like he can make things happen. And yeah, it's just Pedro Neto for me on the right wing. And now onto the left wing. Okay, so this is an interesting one because had Madueke not just absolutely looked completely electric in an England shirt on the left wing, I'd be going with Nicholas Jackson. Whether Nicholas Jackson is actually a left-wing option or not is really, really up for debate. He obviously pulls out there quite a lot when he plays as a striker, and when he was at Villarreal, before they moved him into the striker role, that was what he was doing. He was a left-winger. With a reasonably strong team behind him, this would seem like a good opportunity to put Nicholas Jackson out on that left wing to see if he can make it out there. And like I say, had I just not seen Noni Madueke absolutely look unbelievable in an England shirt, that's what I'd be doing. But because of that game, I think it's Noni Madueke. I think Noni Madueke comes into this left wing spot and he really looks like he might be able to start making it his own. We're obviously probably going to go back in for someone like Jamie Gittins, and there was some talk about Madueke getting sold. But if he can, find himself as a left winger, left-footed left wingers are kind of rare. Do you know what I mean? Normally what you get is the right-footed left winger, and that means he can cut in. And one of the issues with a left-footed left winger is the most obvious thing to do is to cross, right? Now, there's another reason why Madueke actually might be a really good option for that, and we'll get to that in a minute. But in terms of choosing the left wing spot, I think on recent form, he's got time and experience in that position now. He looked so good for England, and Chelsea did start to look better towards the end of last season when we started putting Pedro on the right and Noni Madueke on the left. So for me, I want to win this game. Nicholas Jackson it is an experiment at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you put Nicholas Jackson on the left wing and you know that he's going to do a good job. I do think he could do a job there, but we don't need someone that does a job. We need someone who locks down that position and makes it their own. Noni Madueke. So again, there's been talks about selling him, right? And, he's probably going to want to prove himself if he wants to stay at Chelsea. Now, this is the thing. He might get an offer from, I've talked about it before, maybe a Newcastle, and maybe a Newcastle comes in and says, we want you to be our right winger. That's his natural position. He loves cutting in and trying to score goals that way. But if he wants to stay at Chelsea, you'd have thought this is a great opportunity for him to try and nail down that spot, especially as he looks so good in that England game. So, controversial, potentially. Have a chat with me about it in the comments, guys. If you think it's more important that we give Nicholas Jackson a shot out there, because with obviously Liam Delap coming in and us maybe looking at buying a new striker, there seems to be less room for him up top. Do you think that's because we're going to try and shift him out onto that left wing? Do you think maybe it's because we're going to try and sell him? Or would you put him in this spot right now and give him that chance? For me, based on the fact that I want to win the game, I think Noni Madueke starts. And now we get to the striker position, and this is exciting, isn't it? Because who is it other than Liam Delap? It is Liam Delap. We are going to start Liam Delap in this game. I would be surprised if he wasn't our starting striker for the majority of this tournament. I think it would have to take something like him really not performing in the first couple of games and looking leggy and not really being able to get into the swing of things for us to consider even putting Nicholas Jackson up top. Liam Delap had a great season for Ipswich. He scored more goals than Nicholas Jackson did as well. Now, the other reason that this works for me is with having Madueke on the left wing, the natural inclination for a left-footed left winger is probably going to be to cross and to try and get things into the box more often. Jackson never really proved himself to be really capable at doing that. And with a striker like Liam Delap there, who's kind of a big poachery target man, I know he's got more to his game than that, but just the fact that is actually an option now means maybe Madueke on the left wing makes even more sense. What we all really want to happen is for Liam Delap to come in and absolutely smash it and essentially nail himself to the mast as Chelsea's number 9 before next season even starts, before the next transfer window opens, because this tournament could change things about who we're going to buy, right? Because if Liam Delap comes in and looks solid, then maybe we don't look at spending 100 mil on Hugo Ekitike, or maybe we don't consider going in for Gyökeres, or, although this isn't a news video, I've seen a little snippet today saying that maybe we're going to look and trying to sell Jackson so we can go for Osimhen. I watched one of my last videos. I did a video on Victor Osimhen the other day. I don't want to see him in the team, really. There's lots of reasons for that. They're all in the video. But ultimately, for me personally, if Liam Delap can come in and look like he belongs in this team, then I think all of us will say the same thing. We don't need to spend 400 grand a week and however much money up front on Victor Osimhen, because we've got the guy. Jackson will be a good backup, and that also gives other opportunities for people like Mark Gui, who has also been included in the Club World Cup squad, to come in and play that backup striker role and get more minutes next season. So that is my Chelsea lineup for the first game of the Club World Cup. What do you think, guys? Is it too safe? Is it boring? Is it too crazy that I'm, even thinking about putting people like Mamadou Sarr and André Santos in? I'd really, really love to know what you think. This has been the first in a new series I'm doing called Early Access, and will be followed up by another series of match reviews that I'm doing that is going to be called Patch Notes, so please keep an eye out for that. And as ever, if you enjoyed the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking, sharing and subscribing, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Nice one, guys. I'll be back tomorrow with the update, which is now what I'm going to be calling my news series. So I'm all about branding at the moment, right? I'm finding myself as a content creator, and branding's really important, and I like the idea of giving everything a name. So thanks very much for sticking around, guys. Have a lovely day. Enjoy the sun if you've got some, and I will catch up with you soon. Peace.